And I'm on a Mac, so I am Command Shift A. I'm not going to remember that. So
For mute, for
I'm
the
on a
other,
Mac.
I'm on a MacBook and
I'm
the
on a Mac
space bar
too.
works.
strange. I'm gonna have to figure this one out.
Yeah, it's not working for you, the space bar?
It is not.
Yeah, you see, it doesn't work for everybody. I have an older MacBook. Maybe it's to my advantage this one time.
Sometimes, yeah.
And Kim should be coming in any moment. So that would make a quorum.
Okay, I have not, Pam will not be joining us,
Okay.
but I have not heard anything from Sandy. Has anyone else?
No.
Carol, can you send me the doc of the meeting for the agenda?
I didn't send you the agenda to make a copy?
No.
I must have dreamed of it though.
I'm sure you did.
Been doing a lot of that.
Wait, I got an email. Catherine sent the agenda.
Right. It was in PDF, so I need it in a doc form so I can put the minutes in it.
Oh, that's clever. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Now, it automatically gives you editing privileges, but go ahead and make the copy.
I'll make the copy.
That's because I made it in Google Docs. Google Docs now seems to default to, if you share it, the other person can edit it, which I usually share without letting somebody else edit it.
Right. Yeah.
All right, Kim, when you're ready, we will call to order.
Sorry. I type on the desktop so, and I can listen on the laptop so I can see you and type at the same time.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, let's come to order. Thanks for being here, everybody. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We do not have reports from the Friends or the Foundation. Do we move to accept?
I thought we did have from the Friends. Didn't they send an email?
Oh, they
That
could
was
have.
Union.
Oh, that was Union. I'm sorry.
Oh, and then we did, yes, we got the email about Rosie stepping down, but that was not a monthly report, but yes,
Okay.
we did receive that.
Thank you.
So do you want to remove everything except for the minutes and the union report?
Yes, so I'll make a motion that we accept items 1 and 2, the minutes of our March 18th meeting and Union Public Library report, since we do not have any additional items received. So I move we accept them.
I'll
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Yes.
All right. Treasurer's report.
Okay, so. And just flip to my page here. Okay, so all is well. We actually have gotten a substantial amount of building, just general inspections that we've been doing. And it's been interesting without patrons being in the building and, you know, our services being different now, because it has given me more time to talk with our service providers about different things that are involved in the systems and get to know the systems a little bit more. So that has been really helpful. So you'll see a lot of building maintenance expenses over the past month in May, just because we still keep up with those regularly. Some of the other things that you'll see in there are also, of course, payroll. And we also had a significant amount of COVID-19 expenses. And so those will mostly be in the June report, but just us prepping to get ready with cleaning supplies. We are at a really good point with those now. Also, the plexiglass was installed on Friday. So that was a very large expense, but also very needed expense to protect our staff and also protect our patrons who are coming through. And we, of course, have still been buying books in anticipation of our patrons coming back into the building at some point and being able to browse those. And we also were able to devote a bit more of our collection funds to eZone, which was great because, as you'll see later in the statistics, that has just absolutely skyrocketed. And we've seen such a huge uptick. And I also think it's a wonderful service that we're able to promote and provide for our patrons who just don't feel comfortable going out right now. So one point I did want to note about the Bank Newport account was you'll see a refund to a patron for $100. This was due to a postponed birthday party that they eventually ended up canceling. It was supposed to take place back in March, and we pushed it a few times, but at this point they just wanted to cancel. So that is the refund going back to them. You'll see that there's almost no program expenses, as we have really just, I think all but one program was with an outside artist or somebody we had do the program for us. All the others have been staff led. And I've also instructed library staff to take a look for grant opportunities for programs and other ways to limit program expenditures during fiscal year 21, as the Friends have canceled their 2020 book sale. Union has also canceled their sale. So these events were, primary sources of income. So we're going to be very careful about our programming funds over the next year to 2 years. Okay, so.
Catherine, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So you said you were putting money toward eZone purchases. I know in the past you did not purchase books for Tiverton Library. We just had access to the shared collection. Has that changed?
No, that has not changed. We would have to opt to be an Advantage library, which means that our library users would get books first if we opted for that, and then the books would go into the system, but we have not opted for that right now.
So
there are very few libraries that do.
It's not a set yearly fee to participate?
I don't believe it is. I will.
No, I mean for what you do now.
No.
Oh, so you decide, you purchase the titles, you decide what titles you want, but they go into the shared collection.
Yes, that's correct. And also what I do is, in order to best serve our patrons, I ask OSL to take a look at titles that are in high demand by our patrons. And that way we'll purchase titles like that. So it'll help the wait times go down on those titles that our patrons want the most.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So if there are no other questions on May 2020 or the Bank Newport account, I can go into fiscal year 20 and 21. Okay, so fiscal year 20. So like I said, we made some progress on our building checklist. Last week, we actually had the cork floor repaired, and the service provider who did that for us was actually the original installer of the cork floor. And we learned a lot about the moisture coming up from the slab, and that probably around spring of every year, we'll need to take a look at tiles being replaced, because that's when we notice them start to come up from the floor. So the sections that were in the worst shape, that had really started to peel away from the slab, were replaced. And the service provider actually showed our custodian how to do it. So if we notice a section that is not looking great, it's a tripping hazard, we can have our custodian bring that tile up, let it dry for a day or two, and then lay a new tile down, because we did purchase plenty of extra tiles, which was recommended by Debnor Flooring, because there's the potential that it could eventually go out of stock. So we want to make sure that we have a substantial amount of tiles left for repair. I actually went around the entire floor and marked the ones that I thought could be an area of concern in the future as well. And that's how we based that flooring tile purchase. So we're in pretty good shape there. It does look a little different because obviously, 5 years ago, that wear and tear on the cork floor, there's like a slight color gradation, but it's not a tripping hazard. So we'll take that. We also had the COVID expenses have started to come in. And so that's going to be, you know, definitely more in supplies, and also program expenses that we normally would have not had, things like bags, you know, a lot of craft kits, a lot of different take-home type activities. So we've actually learned that OLIS is now accepting applications for mini grants for libraries that expended funds related to COVID-19 purchases. And this can be, we can apply for this for anything from program supplies, like the bags I mentioned, or the craft kits, to cleaning supplies, hand sanitizer, the hand sanitizer dispensers. And this grant will be good for up to $1,000 here at the main library. And then they're offering the grant for up to $500 at the outlets. So that would include unions. So we had to have plexiglass and cleaning supplies purchased for unions. So we technically will be eligible for up to $1,500 of reimbursement. So I think that's going to be a really, really big help in offsetting some of the costs that have started to come through. So I will prepare that application for submission. And is that something that the trustees would need to approve in July, or something that I can just submit once I'm finished with it?
What's been the practice in the past?
I seem to remember we had a discussion
Yeah, that's
like
been
last year about grants and what, and
I think generally we vote to approve them just because some grants require expenditures on our part, and so we don't want to find that out after the fact. Or some grants, you know, will fund a service for a certain amount of time and then it goes away, and you have to ask yourself, will we be able to continue that service, or are we just sort of teasing our patrons by giving it to them and then grabbing it back? So that's why organizations often just have that rule. You encourage people to go out for the grants, absolutely, but you just, you know, take a vote after hearing, no, we're not expected to, you know, provide matching funds or anything like that. So I will make a motion that we approve Catherine applying for OLIS grants to cover COVID-related expenses.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So back in February, we were anticipating having some extra funds we could put towards building maintenance, but a staff member who did not take healthcare has actually left, and the new staff member that we hired did take healthcare. So that, as you know, healthcare is one of our highest expenses. So that is something we're looking very good for the end of the year. And we're still okay, even with that expense. One of the most unexpected costs for us this year was $1,750 in legal expenses. There's currently the Open Meetings Act complaint that was submitted by Justin Katz, and we have not heard back from that yet, but the majority of that legal bill was for the Open Meetings Act complaint and our response to that. So that was a significant unexpected legal expense there. I do, and yes, Chris.
Just question on that, unless you want to keep going.
No, keep going.
So is that something that we have to pay? We have to get an independent solicitor, or our solicitor will take care of it?
So we had to get an independent
Because,
for that.
and is that true for anything we do, just the nature of the library?
I believe so, yes.
It's varied. Sometimes the town solicitor has represented the library, and other times the town solicitor has said, no, that's not my job. I heard that this was a new solicitor, that the town clerk told the new solicitor that we have our own legal counsel. We do not have any legal counsel on retainer because, I mean, generally we don't need legal advice except in a case such as, you know, OMA complaint. or a charter complaint. Really, looking back, it's been charter complaints or open meeting complaints.
Right. So that was not, did you hear about that later when it was already a done deal?
Here-
Did you hear that the town administrator had said, no, we already have a solicitor on hand at the library?
So what happened is that the complaint was sent to town hall.
Yep.
Actually, it was sent to the town solicitor. And I guess the town solicitor, we spoke to the town clerk. I don't know if I misspoke.
Oh,
It
okay.
was the town clerk who said, no, you shouldn't handle that. The library has their own attorney.
Oh,
And so he just turned it over. But as I said,
okay. And then we ended up going back and getting somebody.
right.
Okay.
Can I jump in here? My audio keeps freezing. Is anyone else having a problem? So
No.
I'm missing some of your comments.
But we don't know
No.
what you're missing.
I think it's a bandwidth problem on your end. I've been there, experienced that. But and so now I sit right next to my router, and that
Okay,
helps.
I'm very close to my router, but all right.
Then I got nothing else to offer.
Okay, please keep going.
Sure. So overall, I do anticipate that we will have to pay the town because of some of these unexpected legal expenses and the COVID expenses. But we also still have this grant that we're applying for, so that will definitely help offset those expenses. And we also still have fines and fees that we had collected on before we stopped collecting those. That will go into Bank Newport account. So I am hoping there will be about $7,000 going into our Bank Newport account this year. And I'm anticipating between $1,000 and $2,000 that we will have to pay the town.
Meaning that we've had expenses higher than what's in the account held for us by the town.
Yes.
Treasurer.
Yes, that's correct. And at the end of the day, it was definitely expenses that we had to expend for. This has really, I think every library is seeing the amount of cleaning supplies we're going to need and protective equipment and different types of building adjustments being made. So it's not really a surprise, but definitely unexpected. So that is my recap for fiscal year 20. We probably will not finalize until August or September. That is pretty normal for us, that we still have some invoices coming in. So I will, of course, update you next month on where we stand. And hopefully I will also have an answer about fiscal year 21 next month. We will see. So I'll lead right into that if that's okay. There is no word on our town appropriation for fiscal year 21, as the FTR has still not been scheduled yet. I keep hearing that the state legislature is meeting and meeting and meeting, and we still do not have any word about where state grant aid will stand. So on our OLIS call this morning, Karen Meller said the expectation will still be that there needs to be a maintenance of effort performed this year. They are not going to make any sort of blanket waivers due to COVID-19 and slashed budgets for any library. So I think that we really need to make sure that we're advocating for our library budget and making sure that for next year, that maintenance of effort is there. Like I said, if I hear any news, I will let you know. I really hope it will be soon, but there has been no indication of anything yet. And that is my treasurer's report.
All right, moving straight along to the director's report.
More of me. Okay, so our monthly usage and program statistics, I have just been really impressed by the virtual programming that our staff has been doing and how creative they've been throughout this entire time. And they are really utilizing this Zoom license very well. All of the programs are either done via Zoom or Facebook. So we're having, we're really getting our money's worth out of this license. I will say that. Despite these trying times, our adult, teen, and children's services have all kicked off their 2020 summer reading programs, which is amazing. So we have a variety of different activities, which are all on our website right now. Reading challenges, craft challenges, take home activities, it's all there. And, you know, we are really trying to provide something in every medium for folks who, you know, want to switch things up a little bit. We can't necessarily have everybody, you know, coming in and filling out a piece of paper for a book review and getting a raffle ticket that way. It's just very different right now. So we're working really hard to make sure that all of the programs are accessible and available. Okay, our E-zone statistics are once again phenomenal. Each month we're seeing a new record set by our patrons. So March was a record, April was a record, and now May is a record, which is fabulous. We had a total of 2,056 items checked out for our main branch here, and also 47 checked out for the Union branch. And the same with Union, we have seen the statistics go up every month, March, April, and then to May. So that has been a really well-used resource. May 11th through 31st, we had 178 pickup orders here at the main library and 12 at Union. Our patrons have been loving this service. The first week, I actually ran the pickup program so that I could see how things were going, sort of the ins and outs of it. I know I mentioned that at the last meeting. So we really were able to take the feedback from our patrons and adjust the service to it. And what we did today actually is we started something called porch pickup. So our patrons who might not be able to make it in a 20-minute time frame that's assigned to them, we're just packing the items and putting them out in the porch with the understanding that somebody else could touch their bag. And so that is totally up to them. They have that option, or they still have the contactless pickup option through the drive-through, where just one order is out at a time. And we have had, I think, about 10 orders for porch pickup today alone, which was great for first day. So that is really helping our patrons who, you know, need a little bit more wiggle room. Okay, I didn't enclose any graphs with the statistics just because it probably would not be too informational to compare this year to last year. So if you would like to see them, I can certainly send them, but we did not have those in there just because of the difference in volunteer hours and, you know, no computer use, things like that.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, so that's what I have for monthly usage and program statistics. I can move on to our phase reopening update if you'd like. And for this one, I included a document solely for phase 2. I know the document I had provided for you back in May had phase 1, which we're currently in, phase 2 and phase 3, just as sort of a broad view of how things will go. But I really wanted to get down into the nitty-gritty for phase 2, as we have to turn in a plan to the state so that they know we're in accordance with all of the regulations that we need to be in accordance with. So we're hoping soon to be open for limited hours, but I did have to, I did remember that we had actually been closed by a town council executive order back on March 16th. So that order is still in effect. So I have contacted the clerk's office, and I will put it on the next town council agenda for that to be lifted or amended in relation to the library so that we could reopen. As Olis has indicated, as long as we're following the guidelines, it will be safe. So that will hopefully be on next Monday evening's town council agenda, and I'll submit those documents tomorrow morning, along with this plan too. So we would be open for limited hours. We would have, you know, a table in the main entrance with like a welcome table or a staff member who would be able to greet somebody, remind them that they need to wear a mask, keep 6 feet apart from everyone. If somebody is not able to wear masks due to medical concerns, then we will make every effort we can to accommodate them and get items for them from the library. We will not have any tables and chairs. Our water fountains will be closed. The Friends are okay with the Book Nook being open for purchasing, and they, I believe, are purchasing an honor box to collect the funds. And of course, we had plexiglass installed. I'll just give a brief overview of each of the sections here. So most staff are back in the building, and we have some limited work from home hours. We had plexiglass installed. If you've ever been in the back staff workroom here, there are 4 cubicles that are very close together, and it's not the type of cubicles that you can move. So we actually had plexiglass installed on the top of the cubicles so that all staff could be working, but separate. So our meeting rooms will still be closed as per OLIS, and we will not yet be accepting reservations. This is just because if we have to keep pushing the opening of the meeting rooms out, it is a lot of work to cancel all those meeting rooms. And I can say that because I'm the one who has to do it. So we will not be accepting the reservations yet. But hopefully towards the end of phase 2, we can. I don't necessarily think we have to wait until phase 3 once we see that we're in a good spot there. I am going to allow municipal court to meet because we have pushed that meeting off significant number of times. And I think that is a public service that we should allow them to meet here and have that business taken care of. They will be following guidelines that I have given them as far as occupancy. We'll have them enter through the community room. So they will not be coming into the main area of the library. They can certainly use the restrooms if they need to and wash their hands. We very much encourage that. And we also think that as far as another town department goes, that they'll abide by all of the rules that we have in place. So the holds number increased today. I know there were some patrons very, very happy about that. It was at 5 and now patrons can place 10. We're going to be getting delivery twice this week, and it'll be 2 times per week going forward for a while. So things are starting to ramp back up as far as circulation goes. We have cordoned off the front foyer area and the front cafe area, as well as the new book area, and that will be the limited browsing area. So we're gonna have some really great curated displays. So the stacks will not yet be open once our doors are open. And again, that's an OLIS recommendation. And so we will do everything we can to bring, you know, fresh items into the displays once we start seeing those displays getting emptied by our patrons who are coming in. We're definitely going to encourage it to be pickup and limit the amount of time that somebody has here in the library. 30 minutes will be the limit, and that will be the same for our computer area too. They will need to make an appointment for computer use, and that's because we will have keyboards and mice available to the person coming in for the reservation. And then once they leave, we'll take those objects away and quarantine them for a couple days. And then we'll have a new set for the next person coming in. So it's an extensive process, and we will only be able to accommodate a limited number of computer users per day because of that. So we are doing everything as safely as possible. It is just very different from how it was before. So anybody wishing to come to the library once we're back open, the best thing to do would be to call us and ask about what you're hoping to do here, whether it be browsing, picking up, using a computer, and that way we can talk to you beforehand about the options that we have and what services will be available. Let's see. Museum passes, that's been a tricky one. So right now we only have one attraction open, and that's Blythewald Gardens. Their restrooms are also open, but everything else on the property is closed. So they even have, you have to place your order for tickets online ahead of time. So that has been difficult to navigate. But if patrons would like to use the Blythe Ball Pass, please call us. We're happy to loan that out. And I know the Friends are really excited to start to see some things open up again, so that those passes that they had purchased can be used again. Also, many of the places that we have museum passes to have extended the pass beyond its expiration date for 3 months. I know the standard is 3 months that they've been using. So we're happy to see that. We are going to require that all returns be made via the book drop and not to staff directly. That way the items coming through, we're able to just quarantine them for 24 hours is the current recommendation. And that way there's no confusion about what has come back. What else do I have here? So we're going to have the children's and YA departments closed for a while longer, just because of our occupancy limit here, and materials will still be available. All the staff will be willing to pull materials. We'll even have their materials in the displays in the front of the library. So we're making sure that those are still available. And we're hoping to bring back some outdoor volunteer community service type things as well. Again, programs are mostly take home and virtual. And I already talked a little bit about our computers and technology. So that pretty much sums up phase 2. Like I said, it's just going to be very different from how the library was before. So it's something that patrons should give us a call about before they come by, just to see what we do have available and how we can best help them.
And Catherine, you want to go ahead and announce the hours during this phase 2, because they are different than our standard hours.
Yes, the hours will be different. And again, this was also an OLIS recommendation. It's going to help us immensely to make sure that everything is cleaned and that we're wiping down all the services. So Monday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday hours would be 11 to 2. So there would be some morning and some afternoons there. Tuesday and Wednesday are usually our busiest days. So those days would be 11 to 6. So we would add in some evening hours. And then also Union would be available by appointment only during their normal Tuesday 10 to 5 and Saturday 10 to 1 hours. And that's because of the smaller space that they have. So it would be the staff member, potentially a volunteer, and the patron coming in. So those would be our hours that I was thinking about, and that's kind of what I had been planning on, but that was also something I wanted to make sure was in accordance with what you all were thinking.
And Catherine, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I just wanted to know, when is this due to start?
Oh, I would love very soon.
No,
as long as we are on the town council agenda next Monday, I'm hoping sometime next week that we could have a soft opening.
Okay, so you'll announce it on the website or in the paper or both? Or
Yep, so we'll start with notification through our email newsletter and also on our website. We would then move to post it on social media and also in the print publications.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So my question is, even though the hours are reduced, staff is still working their regular hours?
They are, and that's because our building hours will be those reduced hours, but our service hours all along have been the 10 to 8 Monday through Thursday, 10 to 5 on Friday, and 10 to 4 on Saturday, and also Union as well, 10 to 5 and 10 to 1 on Tuesday and Saturday, respectively. So despite us not having the doors open for additional hours during the day, we're still offering porch pickup. We're still offering pickup for summer reading kits and crafts, and we are still offering contactless pickup as well.
You've done such a nice job with this. Thank you.
You're welcome. I very much appreciate that compliment. This is what I go to sleep thinking about every night. Any other phase 2 questions? Okay. So I sent out the March survey results, and I have to be very intentional with my time right now and how much of it has been taking with resuming our in-library services and of course all of the different ins and outs of this situation going on right now. So I wanted to ask, before I started, printing all sorts of graphs and giving you all sorts of data, what you specifically would like to see from the March survey results, because there are a lot of different ways that we could look at the data that we received. I think some of the things that you'll probably want to look at were the new services that patrons were requesting. But I know we're in a precarious situation right now with not knowing what next year's budget will be like. So that we might not be able to enact any of those new services right now. But I think that maybe eventually that would be something to consider.
I did notice that Sunday hours
Yes.
was a top priority again with our patrons. And of course, we were hoping at the very start of this budget season that we would get the funding to offer some Sunday hours. And of course, then COVID-19 arrived. But it just means that we were on target. Our patrons still want that. And I feel it should be a priority once funding is again available to allow it.
I absolutely agree. Mm-hmm. I also noticed some digital resources like Hoopla were in there, and I think that would be a phenomenal service we could offer going forward. But again, it's that subscription, that 1 year subscription cost, that if we introduce it 1 year and then we're not able to continue it, then we may have some very, very disappointed patrons as far as those services go. Same with Ancestry. I know I've had that request come through, and also Canopy, which is another streaming service as well. So I think being very intentional about those new services that have those high subscription costs and introducing those when we know it's going to be something that we could carry forward for a long time if we needed to.
Has there been any talk on the state level about funding Canopy? Because in Massachusetts, for example, the local libraries don't have it. Boston Public does, but anybody who lives or works in Massachusetts can get a Boston Library e-card. So because I work there, I have a Boston Library e-card,
Yes.
and I can stream movies through Canopy. But as I said, I don't think that that's a cost for local libraries. It's all borne by Boston Public. And we have, Providence, which is our main state library. So is there talk of Canopy through Providence Public Library?
No, not yet. They run Ask RI, which is funded by OLIS. So that is something that I also believe. I think that we have some incredible state resources, and even through this COVID-19 crisis, we've seen the introduction of Udemy, which is online course content. So if you want to learn something new, there are all sorts of different courses that you can take online for free, and also Flipster, which is digital magazines. And so I think that we're very lucky to have those resources and that it wasn't at a cost to us. So I believe that we should keep looking to see what OLIS will be funding in the future.
I'm a little bit older than you guys. What is Hoopla? Is Canopy a movie channel?
Yes. So
Okay.
Canopy is a movie channel, and they actually have a significant amount of content that not all streaming services do. Hoopla is, I'm blanking on it. Hoopla is streaming movies and music.
Okay.
And audiobooks as well. So I should say, movies, music, audiobooks, ebooks, comics, and TV shows.
Oh,
so it's different. I think Warwick has a subscription, and I want to say Barrington might have a subscription, but I'm not entirely sure. I would have to double check that.
no, it's okay. I didn't know what it was though.
And I think the difference with Hoopla is that it's multi-user audiobooks as opposed to Overdrive, which is always a single user audiobook.
Yes, yeah. And actually, audiobooks and ebooks in general are so expensive. It just absolutely blows my mind, the expense per copy of those licenses versus, a hard copy of a book or physical CDs for an audiobook. So you'll notice if you go in eZone, some of the more popular and relevant titles to what's going on in the world right now are high demand. And so our consortium has purchased 40, 50 copies of these to help fulfill that demand. And to think about the cost associated with each of those, with each of them being about $100 a piece, is extensive. So that's something that I am very grateful that OSL, Ocean State Libraries, controls, and that we're able to contribute when we can.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks.
So let me know what you'd like to see as far as graphs go. New services, I'm sure. I know our librarians are very excited to see the program statistics when they have requested programs. Of course, that's a little different right now, but hopefully once things start to get back towards some sort of normal, we'll be able to use those.
I know this was a survey for the patrons, but have you done surveys, even if it's in-person surveys with the staff to see, because people talk to them, and I'm just wondering, some of their insights.
So typically, if patrons bring suggestions to the staff, they will email me or tell me pretty much as soon as possible,
Yeah,
which is
okay.
great. And I also monitor the staff at tivertonlibrary.org email. So any sort of suggestions, which we do actually get a good number of suggestions for services in there, I will see those as well and try and respond to those or have a staff member respond.
Okay.
So yes, and always at our staff meetings, we try and have monthly staff meetings. Always at those meetings, suggestions will be
They
made.
bring up, okay, great. All right, good.
Catherine, were you happy with the range of people who responded in terms of age groups? It seemed to me it was skewed a little older.
Yes, I did notice that as well. And that tells me also that we in the future should do a better job of promoting this survey to our young adults and children or parents of children, and find different ways that we can promote the survey for those age groups as well, because we definitely have a significant number of families that make up our demographics here. And I don't think I really saw that represented in this survey.
It wasn't a huge participation with something like 92 respondents. I was disappointed when I saw that.
I know. And I think the original 5-year plan survey that was done had maybe 300 or 400 participants. So I was really hoping that we could get up to the same amount. But I think also, in 2 years, when that 5-year plan is due again, we might want to take a look at having a consultant do it, and sort of using their expertise and also their software that they use for surveys. We can only do so much with Google Forms and SurveyMonkey. So
right.
yes.
It was nice to see how it seemed pretty overwhelmingly positive.
Yes.
And that's wonderful, but I just wonder if we were skewing to, singing to the choir, and we missed some people who might have some more critical things to say to us.
Yeah, I thought about that too. And some of the ways that we promoted it were in the newspaper, on our website, through social media. And then also we had bookmarks made that we put in all of the outgoing books. So, it was primarily a library user survey. So there were very few people who said they did not use the library or they only used online resources. So I think that us going into it knowing it was more of a library user survey was appropriate. But for a larger plan survey, like our 5-year plan, we'll definitely want to get some of those voices in.
What's nice is that a lot of the great comments that came out of that survey were pretty much directly related to changes that have been made since that first survey was done and that plan started.
There was some continuity, which is good, but we always want to hear new things too.
Given the, the fact that we're waiting on the budget, my feeling is maybe we wait to take the next steps with the survey. I would like you to draw up a list of priorities.
Sure.
Funding priorities. We did get the graphs, and then we got all of the raw data, right, in the spreadsheet. So I don't personally feel you should spend a lot of time making pretty colored charts and graphs for us. I rather sort of get to the action steps based on it.
I agree.
The pretty graphs are not my forte. I will say that. I have no problem saying that. But the action points, that is my forte. So I can definitely drop a list of priorities. And I think, I know that we were on a schedule as far as the 5-year plan update goes, but with everything, we've kind of got away from that schedule. So perhaps in July, that might be something good to look at, is just for me to give you an update on the 5-year plan, give you the action steps for this survey that we had, and we'll see where we can go from there.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Good.
Just writing that down so I don't forget. Okay.
All right. Anything else on the survey or the director's report?
That is it.
All right. Let's move on to the personnel subcommittee. We did meet last month, and Carol, reading your email follow-up to what we had discussed, it sounds like we were a little off the page from what you were expecting.
Yeah, I think we got our wires crossed. I mean, what you wrote up is helpful for times of emergency. And certainly the last 3 months have taught us it doesn't hurt, and in fact is helpful to have language to address emergencies. I was thinking of general language, because as we come out of this emergency, and Catherine would say she's made some decisions on operations, but does she need board approval or not? Because it's just operations. So then I went back to the personnel manual that describes the duties of the director. And there's a lot of that relates to managing, hiring, evaluating, managing staff. There's nothing in the current language that says the director is in charge of the day-to-day operations of the library. And I think it would be helpful to have that. I mean, we can certainly look at what you came up with and vote on that or discuss it, because we are still, I guess, in a state of emergency until the town council lifts it. Is that correct, Catherine?
Yes. And I think pertaining to us, the executive order closed our doors. So that was about as specific as it got. And I'm hoping that that's lifted on Monday.
Carol, did you send an email to everybody?
No, I asked Kathy for, we were discussing wording for your item. Yeah. And I said update on director's duties or something. And then Kathy sent me the specific language. And that's when we kind of realized our wires were a little crossed, because, and Kathy will share the language, but that the subcommittee came up with, but they were thinking of language that covers the director's duties and authority during times of emergency. And which, as I said, I think certainly is helpful, but I also think we need to beef up the director's duties during general times, because right now that personnel manual pretty much only speaks to the directors in charge of hiring and supervising and evaluating employees. And I think it mentions collection purchases. And So why don't we start with the language on emergency situations, and then I'll show you if I can share my screen or just read the couple sentences I came up with to give you an idea of.
I've lost you all again.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Say, I
Can hear
lost
us.
you while you were speaking.
It did occur to me, it may help you if you turn off your video, because that eats up a lot of your bandwidth. So if you turn off your video, it may save your audio.
Okay.
All right, so did you want me to repeat something?
No, let's keep going. And if there's something that I don't understand that obviously you just said, then I'll ask you to jump in then.
Okay, well, the next item then would be for you to report back on what the Personnel Subcommittee came up with as an update to director's duties.
Kim, can you share that to the screen?
Yes.
I mean, I can find it and read it.
Yep. I can. Just give me a minute.
You should have access. I just made sure.
Okay. There we go. Personnel meeting. Let me make it bigger. Is that good?
Thanks, Kim. That's great.
Looks good.
But I thought you wanted something about the duties and authority day to day.
Yes, but that was the disconnect. The subcommittee addressed emergency, times of
Right.
emergency. And
Right. So I'm just posting, Christine, what we talked about when we met.
Okay, all right. No, I was looking for the duties that you were referring to, Carol. Here it is.
You mean the personnel manual or
Yeah.
my proposed additions?
I would assume the personnel you said the personnel manual, and you had a couple of sentences, or were you referring to this?
No, this is what the subcommittee came up with, and we'll look at that. And then when we finish discussing that,
Yeah.
then I can share more general language.
Okay, okay.
Carol, the rest of us on this Zoom call were on the Personnel Committee call. So do you have comments to make on this?
No, this looks good. It's sort of immortalizing the vote we took that was just for COVID, specific to this emergency. But this is, written up so if we have some other kind of emergency, murder hornets or something,
Don't say it. Don't say it.
we would be prepared.
Well, we did that specifically because the next time there's an emergency, we have to go back and change it again. But if you got this and it's a bit more general, that's what we were thinking. So, and it might not be to the state, it could also be a library, something in Tiverton. Somebody mentioned possibly a fire. So that would be an emergency. So stuff like that. So it was kind of trying to say, okay, let's make this a bit more general. Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen next in these times.
Chris,
So that was a thinking behind it.
And Chris, I think during the personnel committee meeting, you had also mentioned something that I hadn't thought about, which was a hurricane, and that could definitely be something that could happen.
Well, yeah, because you didn't know about it, but I heard it coming.
I still haven't heard anything yet.
And I didn't, and this was before all the protests that were going on. So it's kind of like, you know, things come in threes. So
and I live in East Providence, and we actually had curfews for a few nights. And you know, I'm sure their library system was thinking about if they had to close early, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was right near the end. It was like all of a sudden it was like, wait a minute, we can't just say it about the COVID thing because we're going to be in trouble in another week or so. So, okay.
Still no hurricane, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so this looks very good. It does seem to cover any kind of emergency, whether it's weather or civil unrest or
yeah, or
whatever.
fire disasters. Is it fire disasters? Water, water damage in the building. It's all kinds of stuff.
So, do we need to specify where in the personnel manual to add this, or just say in the section on director's duties? That section is actually called administration, I think.
Catherine, I think you had some suggestions.
Yes, I was thinking that in the administration section, it could go in there just at the end. And let me just pull up my copy of the personnel manual so that.
I think, did you mention that, Catherine, at the meeting of where to put it?
Yeah, she did. She had a couple of options for it. And then I said maybe possibly its own section, but.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It was in the job description, not in the personnel policy manual.
Okay.
So actually, if it's in reference to my job description, you had thought about creating a separate section so that it could be on its own.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're also interested in putting it in maybe the administration section. What was your thinking there? Because it goes either way.
It does, yes.
And I don't have strong feelings either way.
Yes, so I guess it was really two options that we had discussed, was to create a separate section in my job description or to have it in the personnel policy manual under administration. So
yep. And I think the way we ended it was we said, why don't we bring it to the full board? That way we can get their input as well. So there you go, Carol.
I think you're right.
Well, I didn't have the job description, so I was only looking at the personnel manual, which lists a lot of responsibilities of the director. I think it does belong in the personnel manual, but there's no reason why it couldn't also go in the job description.
I agree that it should be in both.
I was going to say, is there any reason why it can't be in both, or? I mean, it would be redundant, but is that, again, it's like either way is okay with me.
I don't think redundancy is necessarily bad. In times of emergency, if you're searching for your authority, it's good to have it in multiple places.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
All right, well, I'm ready to make a motion that we add the proposed language to the director's job description and to the administration section of the personnel policy manual.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Yes, but you're going to have to say it again because
yes,
I wasn't typing.
I cannot see who voted for what.
Yes, Carol.
Yes, Chris.
Yes, Kathy.
Yes.
Kim.
Yes, Kim.
Okay, good.
Carol, you're just
Motion
going to have to
passes.
tell me again what.
All right. I make a motion to add the proposed language to the director's job description.
Okay.
And to the administration section.
Okay.
Of the personnel policy manual.
Okay. And who seconded?
I did, Kathy.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, Carol, did you want to make a suggestion for discussion of amending the job description on a more general note? I cannot hear you.
I forgot I have to press my space bar. So let's see, I'm going to share. And I'm going to click here. There we go. Is that working for everyone?
Yes.
All right. Shall I blow it up? It was nice before. Maybe that's a little too big because now it's partially hidden.
Oh, we can't hear you again, Carol. You're muted. I see your space bar moving. Still can't hear you.
Yes, when I hold down the space bar, it was moving everything. So that didn't work anymore when I was sharing a doc. All right, we're ready now?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
I can hear you.
it says the director is also in charge because this would be in addition to the personnel responsibilities that are in the administration section. Also in charge of the day-to-day operations of the library, including management of the library collection, circulation of library materials, and maintenance of all library facilities and equipment, which is sort of a big deal. And I think we should specify that the director is responsible for that. The director shall ensure that the library meets or exceeds the public library minimum standards and regulations set forth by OLIS, and that operations conform to OLIS guidelines. So that was a suggestion. Certainly, Catherine may have additional suggestions. But as I looked through that administration section, I thought these are like important responsibilities of the director, and they should be specified, because were there ever to be a director who didn't properly maintain library facilities and equipment, or who didn't make sure we met minimum standards, that would be a big problem.
So then you're suggesting that these things are not in there.
That's right. They are not in there now.
And they're not in the personnel part either? But I would have thought they were.
No, I don't. So they're definitely not in that personnel policy manual.
Okay.
I did not review the director job description. So
Okay.
is there any language like this in the job description, Catherine?
Yes. Would you like me to send it over to you? It's in a Word document that I have. There are, I'll put this in here. So there are different sections of my job description. They are primary responsibilities. The first is library services, and there are a significant number of details under that. Personnel management.
Do you want to share? Shall I stop sharing?
Sure, I can share. Screen. Oh, you know what? Let me open up the Word document. That will make it a little easier. Okay, can you see the Word document?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. And let me just bump it up. So general statement is there, and it talks about an administration and operations of Tiverton Public Library and Union Public Library. Plans, organizes, manages all aspects of municipal library services in conformity with Library Board of Trustees. And I would actually like to just change Rhode Island Department of State Library Services. That is changed, that is OLIS now. So that is just a verbiage update. And it goes into primary responsibilities. So we have library services, personnel management, fiscal management, property management, board director relationship, planning and policy making, public relations, and other related duties. And we will also now have the emergency verbiage in here as well. So perhaps saying in the personnel policy manual, the director acts in accordance with everything listed in the job description would be the best method to go. It would be the best way to go.
Okay, so did you, when you went through this, does it say anything about minimum standards set by OLIS?
So that would be in the general statement of responsibility. It says the professional standards, the bylaws, and the laws of Rhode Island governing library services. So it does not mention regulations specifically or minimum standards, but it would fall under the heading of laws of Rhode Island governing library services.
Well, the minimum standards are what you have to meet to get your state grant and aid?
Yeah.
So as I said, I didn't see this. So I think certainly this could be updated just by OLIS. And then if it's up to the personnel subcommittee if you want to take a look and see if there's anything else that could be added. I do like the idea of adding something, not just professional standards of OLIS, but meeting those minimum operating standards, in terms of hours per week based on your population and things like that. Because if you don't meet, you could meet professional, I think somebody could argue you could meet professional standards and not meet those minimum standards in terms of hours or something. But I may be wrong.
If I may just advocate for myself for a moment, I don't think minimum standards should be put in the job description, because if for some reason we cannot meet those minimum standards due to town funding, I don't think that should be something that it necessarily is reflected in my job description. My job is to meet them as best as I possibly can with what we are given as far as the town allocation goes. But if for some reason funding is cut, then I don't think that should be something that necessarily reflects in my job description.
And maybe the language should be just that: make every effort, given the available funding, to meet those standards, or
Yeah.
prioritize meeting those standards with the available funding. Because I do understand if you don't get the funding that you need, or if funding is cut, you're not going to meet those minimum standards. But it should certainly be a goal and a priority to meet them, so that you don't jeopardize your state grant and aid. So you don't pay for something that's a nice to have, as opposed to a required to have by those standards.
Mhm. I would agree with that.
Is that the only thing? It would be if you, you know, one of the problems with this stuff is that you got to try to think of all possibilities. Can you see if it would be, I mean, can you think, Catherine, is it just the basic, the funding? Or is it some other thing that would put that, so we'd have to change the language again? Just see what I'm trying. I mean, the obvious one would be the funding. If your funding gets cut, you know, we shouldn't be holding you to that. On the other hand, is there something else that, you know, that we, you know, would be fine with Carol, like to keep the minimum, some kind of minimum standard, without overkilling it? But
I think it would be beneficial to put something that, something to the effect of the director will implement and enact services in accordance with the public library minimum standards in order to maintain, or in order to uphold OLIS guidelines.
yeah.
And then another issue that came up was whether the library director's responsibilities should include attending department head meetings in town. Most of our former directors did attend those meetings, as Catherine does, and I think they're very valuable, but not all of our prior directors did. So I think if we feel that that is an important, you know, activity for the director, then perhaps that might be added to statement of response.
I'm just going to look through quickly. I apologize for moving the screen. I just wanted to see if that was something that was in here.
So I think that this might require another meeting of the
That's,
personnel subcommittee.
It's under
It is.
public relations here. Roman numeral 7, part B, official municipal department head represents the library either alone or in conjunction with the board of trustees at town meetings, department head meetings, and other municipal functions.
All right, well then it may be covered, and all we need to do is add something in the personnel policy manual that just says, you know, it speaks to personnel responsibilities, and something that says additional responsibility of the library director are delineated in the director's job description.
I was just searching to see if there was any other appearance of minimum standards, but it is just there. I'm going, would you like me to keep sharing my screen, or I can stop?
I agree with what Kim said. I think we need to take another crack at this, because I'm just trying to look at the manuals that I've got and do this at the same time. And it's like, I don't want to revisit this again.
Right. I'm having trouble wrapping my head around all of it myself. And
Yeah.
I really need to be able to have time to, you know, look at what we already have in our documents and then see what we need to update.
That's what I was thinking.
Or
Well, then why don't we go ahead and plan on that?
Okay.
Catherine, do you want to send a doodle and the four of us can plan on getting together?
sure, absolutely. Okay.
All right.
Carol, would you mind just sending Catherine like your big takeaways of things that you would like to see in it, things you would like to see us address, so we don't miss anything this time?
Sure, I'll make some notes to self and share them with Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. Discussion possible vote on director's virtual conference registration.
Okay, so I know you all voted to pay for my conference attendance in Chicago. That would have been next week. Sad, very sad. I will not be attending. They have canceled the in-person event and they had done so back in March, I believe it was. So there was an option to, with the conference registration that I had paid, there was the option to have that roll over into this virtual event and also pay for the registration at the midwinter event that would be in January 2021. I did not opt to take that. I opted for the full refund. Number one, because I know that my conference attendance is dependent on your approval. And this was a different type of event. So it wasn't, you know, me going and attending. Also, the conferences fall into different fiscal years. So this virtual event will be in fiscal year 20 and the ALA midwinter meeting will be in fiscal year 21. So I wanted to make sure that we were keeping with how things had been done in the past with those being in separate fiscal years. So here I am asking again if I can attend this just in the virtual format. The registration cost is $60, which is much less. It's about $200 less than the previous like in-person registration. And I am really hoping that I can attend these sessions because number one, I have to as an ALA council member, but with how timely things have been, as far as crisis management goes. Also, I anticipate there being a lot of discussions on racism and injustice and how that relates to libraries. I would like to take away as much as I can from those discussions and be a part of that larger library discussion.
I move that we approve the director's virtual attendance.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And I believe that that concludes our agenda. Move to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
I will second. Thank you all for coming. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.